Well, hello and welcome to this edition of Wednesday Palaver. We just had a voter registration exercise. It's not complete. The process of writing names has completed. We still have some verifications to do, and there is still the exhibition, and then the final compilation of the register. Interestingly, since the first phase ended, the Electoral Commission has been praising itself to the very high heavens. And the Electoral Commission appears to enjoy the full support of the New Patriotic Party. Many of the civil society organizations, including the CDD and others who observe the elections, have come up with remarks that are exceedingly interesting. Well, this evening, what we want to do is to look at that part of the exercise, to evaluate it, and then to chart the way forward. And indeed, it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Mensah Thompson, who is from the Alliance for Social Equity and Public Accountability. And this organization has also been following very keenly the process of registration. What we're going to do is that we're going to invite Mr. Mensah Thompson to give us opening remarks of between 15 and maximum 30 minutes. And then thereafter, we're going to come to the studio audience for them to raise questions, for them to make comments, and so on. And then we go to our Facebook, because we are streaming this on Facebook. And then we go to our WhatsApp page and so on, and take comments from the people who are watching us from home and elsewhere. And then thereafter, Mr. Mensah Thompson will come back and give us his closing remarks. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome to the podium Mr. Mensah Thompson. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Uncle Kwesi. It's a pleasure to be here. This afternoon, I was listening to a press briefing by the Electoral Commission, and one of the things that the Electoral Commission confirmed, which caught my attention, is that there are foreigners and minors who have found their way onto this current register which we have just compiled. And the EC is going to take steps to remove these foreigners and minors. Now, this brings us to why we've maintained, just after the exercise, that we are back to where we started. $165 million down the line, we are back to where we started. We've wasted this country's resources to compile a register, and today the Commission is telling us that they are going to clean this very register which they have just compiled. And if you remember, when this whole conversation started, this is one of the things which we have always maintained, that look, instead of wasting everybody's time and wasting this country's meager resources, why don't we clean the register? Now, you've taken us through this process, wasted our time, wasted the country's meager resources. Now you are going back to the very thing that we have asked you to do after spending $165 billion in a needless exercise. Now, how did we get here? How did we get here? Now, two things. We are here because of two primary things. Two different entities with different desires who met and make sure that they were going to put the people of this country into this needless, facade which we find ourselves in. The first party is the New Patriotic Party, who have had an insatiable desire to remove persons it deems as opponents from the register, and hiding on the basis that these opponents are foreigners. They've always maintained that this current register, this old register, was bloated. And they've had this conversation right from 2016. And you remember the conversation that went on with the IEA and other civil society organizations. Went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ordered the Electoral Commission to eliminate names which registered with the NHIS from the register, and what have you. So the New Patriotic Party has been very consistent about their how do we call it, their perception about this register, that it was bloated. Then they met an Electoral Commission who had an insatiable procurement appetite. A very insatiable procurement appetite. Who were willing to throw this country's money down the drain and damn the consequences. Damn the opportunity cost of the $165 million. They were willing to just enter into a procurement, and they were ready to spend $165 million. So when you have these two groups who meet, so an insatiable need to remove opponents from a register meet with an insatiable need or insatiable appetite for procurement, when these two groups meet, or when these two desires meet, the results is what we have. So one group was interested in removing some names from the register. The other was interested in getting money out of the poor taxpayer and wasting this country's resources. Because at the end of the day, whatever procurement that you do, they stand to benefit from those procurement exercises. And today, the Electoral Commission has taken us through one of the most opaque procurement process in this country, $365 million down the drain, and today it has the effrontery to stand in front of the people of Ghana to tell us that it is going to clean the very register it has just compiled. How ridiculous. Now, the Electoral Commission had always maintained two key things. And of course, I would also admit that they have always shifted their positions. They started from the fact that the equipment were obsolete. And so they told us that the machines, i.e. the BVD and the BVR machines, which were used in 2016, are all obsolete. When they raised this issue, we did some work with Imani. Then we found out that, according to the Special Budget Committee report of Parliament in 2019, the Electoral Commission were given at least 25 million Ghana cedis to purchase new equipment every year between 2016 and 2019. That means that just before the District Assembly elections, the EC conducted a limited registration exercise. Before that exercise, they procured about 2,000 sets of BVD and BVR kits. Then just in January 2020, the Electoral Commission came back to tell us that these machines that were procured in 2019, together with those that were procured in 2018 and 2016, are all obsolete. So after we brought the Special Budget Committee report and exposed the ridiculous agenda of the Electoral Commission, then they came out with another excuse, that the register was bloated, and that if they remove the names of the dead people on the register, or the names of people who are not supposed to be on the register, when they clean it, the cost of cleaning the register is going to be more than the cost of compiling a new register. So then we asked them, okay, why don't you bring your cost component? Because if you are telling us that the cost of cleaning a register or cleaning a system is going to be expensive than the cost of compiling, or the cost of compiling a new one, then bring us the cost component and let's assess. We can also do what we call on-market verifications. Based on the figures that you're going to give us, we can do verifications and find out whether indeed the numbers confirm the narrative that you are giving us. Up to date, the Electoral Commission could not provide any cost component to us. And they have not been able to justify that narrative that the cost of compiling, the cost of fixing the old system and cleaning the system for the 2020 elections was going to be more expensive than the cost of compiling a new one. So they went on and they had massive support from the current government, at least because this fit into the narrative and the perception which they have had for the register. So the Electoral Commission, in an entrenched position, wasted a total of $185 million. They spent $70 million on hardwares alone. They spent $60 million on software and data center. Then they spent $65 million of your poor taxes on goods and services. Let me go over the cost again. The Electoral Commission spent $185 million in total. They spent $70 million on hardware. They spent $60 million on software and the data center. They spent $65 million on goods and services. After all this expenditure, they say that now they are going to clean the system, when they could have cleaned the old system for just a $1.5 million. They could have fixed the old system. After wasting $185 million, they are back to square one, going to clean the system. So the question we are asking is, so why waste everybody's time? Why waste this country's mega resources on this reckless exercise, when eventually you are going to come back to where you started from? But again, this also confirms a number of the things that we civil society organizations have raised, that look, the arguments the Electoral Commission had raised did not support the exercise that they wanted to engage in. Because if you said that the register was bloated and has ghost names, what we needed was a mechanism to remove the ghost names. And that is the cleaning which they are going to do now. The cleaning that they are going to do now, that is the cleaning they are going to do. And now they have no shame. They can confirm that now there are foreigners and minors on the new register they have just compiled. But this was the reason why you told us we were going to spend $185 million to clean the register and remove ghost names, remove foreigners, and remove minors. That is what you told us. Then you spend $185 million, then you come back and tell us that now it is now that you are going to remove those names. This is extremely ridiculous. But after the exercise, let's look at the credibility of this current register. Let's look at it. Now, according to the EC's own data, 60% of the people who registered on a current register registered with a Ghana card. They went to the center with a Ghana card. About 38% of the people who registered used guarantors. That means somebody went to vouch for them to say that they were Ghanaians, so they should be allowed to register. Then about 1.7, 1.8 used the passport. Now, if you look at data from the National Identification Authority, it says that 80% of the people who acquired the Ghana card used guarantors. It was somebody who said they were Ghanaians, that is why they were given the Ghana card. If you add it to the about 38% of people who also went to the polling centers with guarantors, it means that you have about close to 86% of the people on the current register who are on the register because somebody said so. Because somebody said they were Ghanaians. Close to 86%. Because somebody said they were Ghanaians, and not because they have any formal identification or formal documentation to prove their citizenship. And you want to tell me that this register is more credible than the one we had, which people have gone through a system of verification for at least since 1992, and they've gone through a system, and the system has authenticated their citizenship continuously for about 2 decades. You want to say that this current register is more credible than the one we had, when about 86% of the people on this current register are on it because somebody said so? This is extremely ridiculous. Then you look at the ISIS argument of a bloated register. So they said the register was bloated, and the old register had roughly about 15 to 16 million people. They said it was bloated. So prior to the registration exercise, they set their target at 13 million. The ISIS told us they were going to register 13 million people. Then in the middle of the exercise, when they realized that they were so close, they reviewed it to 15 million. That their target is 50 million at least. When they register 50 million people, they know that they have had a credible register and the register is not bloated. After the exercise, they registered 16.9 million people. Which of these two registers are bloated? Tell me, which of these two registers are bloated? Then there were specific indications about some foreigners on our register, and some constituencies were needlessly attacked and maligned, and we saw all the military intimidations and the security intimidations in those regions. And one of such constituencies is the Ketu South, which we all saw a member of parliament openly explain that, look, that place is bloated because they have foreigners on the register. So we took a specific look at the figures from Ketu South. At the end of this current registration, the EC registered a little over 140,000 people in Ketu South. Now, if you look at the growth, the population growth on our current register, in 2000, Ketu South had a population of about 98,000 population. On our voters register, between 2000 and 2020 has increased by 70%. 70%. If you do the regional breakdowns, the voter population in Ashanti region has increased by about 50% between the same 20-year period. Central region has increased by about 60%. So it means that within a period of 20 years, Ketu South has increased in size as far as the voter population is concerned by just 40%, way below the national average of about 70%. So how can you say that this region or these places has foreigners, or has unnecessarily grown in population size such that you believe that there are foreigners among these people? Just 40%. Meanwhile, places like Ashaiman, Fomena, Bekwai have all grown by about 60%. So are there foreigners in Bekwai? Are there no Togolese in Bekwai? Or we have Ivorians in Fomena? So you have two constituencies. One has grown in size, in population size, voter population size, in a period of 20 years by 40%. The other has grown by 60%. The one that has grown by 60% is not bloated. The one that has grown by 40% is the one that has foreigners. This is extremely ridiculous. And so you would realize that the EC's own figures after the registration exercise has exposed their own lies. has exposed the blatant untruths that they peddled prior to this exercise. And today, they are looking into our eyes. $185 million down the line, they are going to remove foreigners and minors from our register. Now, again, they've made some really ridiculous claims. Now, if you look at the regions, the regional breakdowns, we have the Volta region, which is a stronghold of the NPP. We have the Ashanti region, which is a stronghold of the NDC. These two regions have all maintained the same margin of voter population as the previous register, the old register. They have maintained the same margin of population as it was on the previous register. Then you have the swing regions, such as Greater Accra, Bulo East, and Central, having seen some increase in their figures. So, after taking us through this whole exercise, the Volta region, which people told us that they were bloated and there were foreigners who were coming to register after the exercise, they've maintained close to the same range of voter population. In Ashanti region, they've all maintained close to the same range of voters. So, was the population in Volta region on the old register bloated? Was it? What about Ashanti region? Because looking at how the New Patriotic Party supported this exercise, we should have seen a massive numbers in Ashanti region to back their claim. Unfortunately, they have maintained the same range of vote. However, the swing regions, where nothing has been said of their bloated figures, these regions are the regions that have recorded the increase in vote, in voter population. So the question is, the population growth in the swing regions, is it due to foreigners? Is it due to foreigners? So, when you look at all these issues, then you ask yourself, what was the opportunity cost of this whole exercise? The opportunity cost of this whole exercise is that we could have spent $1.5 million to clean this system, spent a little over $10 million to fix these old machines, and we could have saved this country huge sums of money. Today, there are several loan agreements in Parliament. We are going to borrow to provide basic infrastructure for our citizens. Meanwhile, we've just wasted $185 million on an exercise which has brought us nothing. The Electoral Commission and its own enterprise are back to where they started from. We are all back to square one. And we believe that people must answer for this. This is an issue that is not going to end now. We are going to follow this issue keenly. One, the procurement bit of it, the more practices that went on in the procurement process how the whole process was shredded in secrecy, and how the process was not open for us to be able to offer accountability scrutiny to this whole exercise. Then, while we've all been lied to as a citizen, as tax-paying citizens, we've all been lied to by an electoral commission just because they wanted to engage in a procurement exercise that will put some few dollars in their pocket at the detriment of you and I. I think this is not an issue that must be left to lie. The electoral commission must be held accountable, and we are willing to take this issue up with any future government to ensure a proper and extensive audit of the work that has been done by the current commission, scrutinize every penny that has been spent on this exercise. The current commissioners of the electoral commission must in future be all surcharged. In fact, they must be made to refund this $185 billion back to this country, or they go to jail, because they've wasted this country's meager resources, they've caused financial loss to the state in a needless exercise, and today we are back to where we started from. Thank you.
Well, comrades and friends, we've been hearing from Mr. Mensah Thompson from the Alliance for Social Equity and Public Accountability, and we are discussing the just concluded first part of the registration exercise. It is now my pleasure to invite those of you in the studio to make your comments, to ask questions, and so on. It's obvious that one of the things that we have not discussed yet is the violence that characterized the registration exercise. And this morning I was reading the report of the CDD, which actually said that this is the most violent registration exercise in our history. And according to the CDD, there were 20 incidents of violence. That out of the 20 incidents of violence, about 60% were severe cases of violence, and about another 20% were mild, and so on. So the CDD had its own categorization of the violence that occurred. The other significant thing had to do with the fact that all the civil society organizations that monitored this exercise came up with the finding that there was a racket involving the how do you call it? Under the rule, if you didn't have a Ghana card, somebody had to vouch for you. Now, all the civil society organizations that monitored the exercise came up with the conclusion that that process of vouching for people was actually organized, and to some extent, it was commercialized. People had to pay money for people to vouch for them, and so on. In any case, time for the audience, the studio audience, to make their comments and to raise the questions, and today we are sticking to time. So we have 15 minutes to do that. No long stories, short stories, and then we move. How many of you want to ask questions? How many of you want to make comments? I see Najib's hand up. Who else? 1, 2. Anybody else? 3, and a 4, and a 5. So we'll go in that order. Najim, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5. Questions, comments, anything you want to say.
Thank you, Comrade Pratt. You see, when we say bourgeois democracy is absolute rubbish, people don't understand. How do you create a system that make a very dumb person come to tell you that I need this amount of your money to create, to give you an opportunity to exercise your right? Then after having spent that amount of money, the person comes back to tell you that, look, I've gone back to square one. which is exactly where we started from. So you probably need to give me more money to do what I'm supposed, you told me to have done in the first place, that I refuse. Then you have, pardon my language, but I mean, there's no diplomatic way of saying it. You have somebody even more dumber than that to defend such a person to the, I mean, at all cost. Then on 7th December, they are going to spend more of our money, put us in queues to go and select somebody that probably they've already selected down. Then those same people will in turn go to World Bank and IMF and all of these places and borrow probably half that amount of money to come as budget surplus. You think about some of these things and they don't make sense. We are living in a system created by some people to the advantage of themselves and to the disadvantage of virtually everybody. So as young people, I think we ought to stand up. We ought to speak up to some of these things. And I'm very impressed by Mr. Mensah and his group. They've been speaking very articulately about some of these things. And there's a need for us as young people to start voicing out some of these things so that they don't take us for right. They don't insult our intelligence. They don't insult our collective reasoning as Ghanaians. Thank you.
Good evening, comrades, and good evening, Mr. Mensah Thompson. You're welcome. In my very existence in this country, ever since I was born, before independence, I think this is the most fraudulent, I don't know if there's another word more than fraudulent, registration that I've ever witnessed in my life. Because I don't know, it is not the, when you belong to a tribe, it is not the making of that person, it is the making of our creator. But I have found that ever since this, our present vice president started hammering and churning out falsehood that there were some certain amount of names in the old voter register. The present government, the apparatchiks, started churning out that lie, continual lying, so that people will believe that what you are saying is the truth. Ever since some people like Comrade Kwesi Pratt and others told him to bring out the excess, what he said it was remaining till today, our vice president have not been able to bring that thing out. And it seems the whole target was against Voltarians. And when you mention it, they will tell you you are hyping, what do you call it, sentiments, certain sentiments that will bring tension. Whilst mean they committed those tensions. How do you bring, I've never witnessed, I stand to be corrected, that you send military to border towns to go and suffocate, suppress people not to register. So, my brothers and sisters, if we don't, just like Mensah Thompson is saying, if we don't stand up to these people, either we will have to stand up and drag them to any court that will let them cough out what they have been able to steal into their pockets.
Thank you very much. And thanks very much, Mr. Mensah, for the very detailed submission. I think that sometimes diplomacy is a hindrance to some of these times we find ourselves in. Look, this is clear and present danger. What is happening now is a novelty. It is not, it has never happened even under some NPP administrations before. What is happening now is simply under the authorship and leadership of Akufo-Addo. It's as simple as that. And I have said that if you look at how they dismembered their own internal party mechanism, their own internal party electoral college, to suit the whims and caprices of a single man. A man who lost an election went to court. He went to court not simply because he believed he had won an election. He simply was on an emotional roller coaster to buy himself some sympathy, which itself has extended to where we are. And I think that we need to see things. I mean, this is a grand scale of the laboratory test that Akufo-Addo embarked on in his own party a few years ago. This is exactly what is happening. Because, I mean, this has never happened before. Where you have an auditor general just about to embark on an audit of the EC, and then suddenly he is asked to proceed on leave. What is happening now is a grand scale of what has been tried and tested over. But then again, the resolve of the Ghanaian is being pushed. And there will be a response. There will be a response, and an appropriate and a legal response. A response commissioned by God himself. And I think that let nobody delude himself. Let nobody delude himself that the people of this, the will of the people of this country can be altered in any way. Thank you very much.
Hello. Yeah, I go by the name Clara, a musician and a TV presenter. You know, thanks very much, right, for the point you've made so far. And let me see, in everything, there is always a master architect of that game. And that person is always up there. You get what I'm trying to say in terms of politics, right? You know, I always say there are two people in this world, those who can shut up and those who have something to say. Those who can shut up will just sit down and watch things go wrong around them. And those who have something to say need the platform to say it. So I think I have something to say, yeah, which I will say. You know, I will say in today's Ghana, we can't boast of leaders anymore. We have dealers. Yes. And the dealers are wasting our taxpayers' money, your money, my money. Yeah, and the market, everybody's money. They don't care about anybody. So far as they have the zeros in their account, their aim is to increase their zeros, not decrease the zeros. So whatever they will do to increase the zeros, they don't care. They don't care about us, because when you talk, trust me, your voice can never overshadow anybody. Poor man's voice can never overshadow the rich. So far as they are in charge, they are running the game. And you know, one thing they always do is they feed us with true lies. Always say this, always say that, for them to, you know, manipulate our mind, always play with our, for us to follow their games. And we've been doing that for some time now. But I think it's time for Ghanaians to wake up, because, you know, Ghana is like a car, a fine car. And if you give the country to unlicensed driver, you know what will happen. I don't want to go much. You know, it's a proverb I'm saying. So one thing they always do, they promise us change. When they get there, they change their promise. So it's time for us to change their promise and and change them too. So I won't say much though. It's time for us to wake up, you know, and make sure we think of Ghana first and cancel these kind of games, because, you know, it may be me, it may be you, or somebody by your side who will get hurt one day. Thank you so much.
Good evening, comrades, and thank you very much, Mr. Mensah. I would like to go a little bit lower. I think you mentioned something about a lot of people being vouched for to register. If really it actually happened, then it means, how are we going to determine the age of those people who were vouched for to register, since from the scratch our birth certificates have already been made useless, because there can be no court to determine how the age of others. Yeah, secondly, I want to touch on one thing. All the time we've been looking at bigger pictures, but most of the time I just want to go down. From the look of things, a lot of people were classified as aliens, foreigners, and all those things, and it's very bad. And with this, I'll call on all Pan-Africanists, all forward-looking people, to come out, to really come out on the 7th December to vote this government out. Because if we've got a project at hand saying we want to unify Africans, and one person can just come out and say, you are a foreigner, you are this and you are this, it means that person is not fit to be an African leader, and those people should be voted out of power. Thank you very much.
Well, comrades, we have so many messages, and I'm not sure that we can read all the messages. So we're going to start with some of the messages on Facebook. And the first one is from Benjamin Gandat. It says, now, in fact, I'm sick with EC, but very sick of the Supreme Court. They are the problem. There is Akwesi Ejapon, and Akwesi Ejapon says, good evening. Electoral Commission said that we have minors and foreigners in the new register. In fact, Ghana is doomed under Akufo-Addo and Jim Mensah-led administration. Ghanaians are tired of this bad governance and lazy leadership under Akufo-Addo's administration. Seth Oboaba says, my brother, most Ghanaians who are in possession of the old voter ID card have not registered, including me, because the clueless administration decided to ask the EC to conduct registration with borders closed, and some of us coming home to register to vote are coming home to register to vote him out. We are coming home to register to vote him out. This is from a guy called Charles Thompson, and Charles Thompson, your English is too heavy for me. I'm going to try and see if I can read it. It says, discombobolution of the highest order in corrupt reading Ghana. Discombobolution of the, well, Charles, heavy English. This one says, well done. Simply says just well done. Amevoche Edward says, I'm highly disappointed in this MPP government. Nanaya Ojan says, waste of time and taxpayers' money. Useless. Alhaji Yusuf says, there's no problem with the register, but they wanted to reduce the number of voters in places where NDC supporters are. Samuel Buade says, the gentleman who did the presentation, I suppose he's talking about Mensah Thompson, says he's simply awesome and brilliant. Charles Thompson again, this time it's not about combobulation. He says, no condition is permanent on planet Earth. Deceitful people will get their common pants sooner rather than later. Adolf Joe Frimpong says, oh, say it again, oh, bro. Yao Unturi Edubuahini says, wow. Says, Uncle Kwesinie, what does that mean? Dodromi TV Radio says, foreigners from where? Juliana Belinda Lamte Obiri says, I can't. It says, this is boss will go to jail. So what is the point of a register whose quality is this poor? Then there's a guy called Adolf Joe Frimpong, and Adolf Joe Frimpong is having fun. He's just sending us emojis, plenty different ones. First one says, good. There's Akumia Michael says, watching you from Stockholm, Sweden. Juliana Belinda Lamte Ubiri says, wow. Happy belated birthday. What does that mean? Adolf Joe Frimpong comes again with more emojis and more emojis. And then there's Cephas Fiajo, who says, I totally agree with you. Jijome says, please, oh, where are the foreigners from? And then Adolf Joe Frimpong again, Adolf Joe Frimpong again, Adolf Joe Frimpong again, Adolf Joe Frimpong again, and again, and again, and again. And now he's sending us roses. And this one is from Amevoche Edward. He says, MPPO. Then Juliana Belinda Lantebri says, so why is the media so quiet? Why is the media so quiet? Abdul Manan Al-Hassan sends emojis. Benjamin Gondat sends emojis. Ben Kofi says, they chop Ghanaians' tax money. Qua. This MPP government, dear. Oh no. Buhari Suleiman says, they have chopped our money. Osman Umar Babatu says, the voter ID card registration is a 419. 4 more for Nanado, more 419. Ibrahim Washara says, there are tribal bigots within the new patriotic party. The messages are so many, we can't read all. Can I have the WhatsApp messages as quickly as possible? WhatsApp messages, because we are running out of time. We are really running out of time. This one is from Comrade Charles Dakora from Tamale. And Comrade Charles Dakora from Tamale says, good evening, comrade. It saddens my heart whenever I listen to discussion on the new voters register. It is really sad that poor taxpayers' money are used for this needless exercise. Meanwhile, we live in a country where these same taxpayers don't have basic access to good health, education, shelter, and so on. And we waste money on this needless exercise, especially in this pandemic. And this is from Dakora. This says, what's going on, man? We are doomed. No more 4 years for Nana. It's from Osman from New York. Osman from New York. Osman from New York. Oh, somebody is going to mess everything up. Somebody is calling the line. Please stop calling the line. Somebody is calling the line. Please don't call the line, because if you call the line, you would mess us up. Then this is a guy from Mankasim. He's simply called Razak. He said, God, please forgive me for voting for Nana Addo in 2016. There's some more. This is from Rootman from Sunyani. And Rootman says, what I don't even understand is the double standards of the head of state. The very people the president denied the right to their own state are same called foreigners during registration compilation. I need answers. Rootman from Sunyani. Rootman from Sunyani. Oh, please don't call the line. Please don't. This one says, good evening. Why is the media so quiet on all these happenings? And it's from Justice from Hohoy. Justice from Hohoy can't understand why the media is so quiet, so quiet. Somebody's trying to call us again and is messing us up. The person has completely now messed us up, and I'm trying to look for the messages. This is from Nana Frimpong, who says, just look at even the quality of the cars they issued. Money of her hotel. What does that mean? Anybody understands that? I don't. This is from Honorable Razak from Adujima. He says, 419 register. 419 register. What does that mean? 419 register. This is from... Oh, the person calling is being consistent. Why? My friend, why? You want to spoil the program for us? Stop it. This is from Razak from Mankesim again, and he says, only, well, Razak, I'm afraid I cannot read that message. For good reason, I can't read that message. This one says, nice program, keep it up, Pan-African Television. This is, may God deliver us from tyranny, and it's from Courage Amache. The person who is calling is consistently calling, making sure that we are unable to read our messages, but not lie, we'll read as many as we can. We are all waiting for this December to vote them out of power. No name. This says that reckless and gross incompetence, the MPP deceived Ghanaians, and it saddens me why the media is silent. This is from Justice Wonders. Justice Wonders. This is from Eben from Tema. It says, please, if the government has finished using our money on voters register, let them open the borders for us. Why? Nana, we beg you. It will be easy. This is from Kingsley from La Paz. It says, we are grateful this afternoon for this platform. This is from La Paz. La Paz. I suppose it's Abaka La Paz. This guy says, Junior is my name. The Akufo-Addo government and the current EC are not serious and want to send us back to the days of the curfew. It's good to give every government 8 years. But this Akufo-Addo government, no, not 8 years. Wow. And then this one simply just says, hi. Hey, the caller is busy. It's calling basa. This says, are you people serious at all? Wow. Well, this one simply says, hello. Well, hello, sir. Hello, too. You know, there's a long one about Carlos Ahinkran and COVID and so on, and it's from a guy called Tomla, Tomla. Now we have 10 minutes to go, and we want to use this 10 minutes as profitably as we can. So we would invite Mr. Mensah Thompson from ASEPA. We give him 5 minutes to round up. 5 minutes to round up. Round of applause for Mr. Mensah Thompson from ASEPA.
Thank you, Uncle Kwesi, once again. I just requested for a copy of the current voters ID card. And I just want to show you. You can all see. So this is the $185 million. This is what your $185 million produced. This laminated piece of paper, which couldn't even be straightened well. This is what $185 million of monies that could have gone into productive ventures. This is what it was produced for us. And I bet the old voters ID card is of major quality than this. But this is what we have after $185 million. There's also one thing that I really want to draw your attention back to, which the Electoral Commission wish we all forget. But there's no way we will forget the lies that they told us. Now, one of the reasons the Electoral Commission told us that they have to compile this register was that they were going to add additional technology called facial verification, which was going to, make the register even more credible, eliminate the manual verification from the system. So they were going to do facial verification. Now, after the exercise, I want to tell you how many people are going to be verified in December 2020 through this so-called facial verification. And these are people who do not have fingers or limbs or scannable fingers, and because of one reason or the other, they are going to be verified. They are going to be verified through the so-called facial verification, and they are 61,995,000 people. 61,995. So out of the 16.9 million people that the Electoral Commission registered, who are on our current register, who are eligible to vote in December 2020, only 61,000 are people who could not meet the criteria to have fingerprints or could not have their fingerprints scanned and are going to be verified through the facial verification system. And that is 0.37% of the total number of people the Electoral Commission registered. 0.37. After wasting $185 million on an exercise and telling us that you are going to add a major technology that is going to eliminate manual verification, after the exercise, only 0.37 of the people you registered are going to be verified through this so-called major technology which you are going to add. 0.37%. This is extremely sad. This is extremely sad. And some of us will not rest until somebody pays for this. You can't lie to the people of this country and think there will be no consequences. And we must use this ridiculous procurement by the Electoral Commission and needless exercise by the Electoral Commission to set a good example for public office holders that, look, today you may have the law on your side, tomorrow you won't. And we will use every medium in our constitution to bring you to public accountability. Then, one of the issues one of you raised about the birth certificate, which I find very interesting. Okay? After rejecting our birth certificate and wasting $185 billion to compile a register, you say now you have minors on the register. So you are going to remove the minors. How are you going to remove the minors? Are you now going to use the birth certificate to remove the minors? The birth certificate you did not accept for the exercise. Are you going to use that to remove the minors? You see the contradiction of a commission we have. Extremely contradictory. They must come out and tell us, because this is really, really interesting. On this note, I want to use this opportunity to thank the production team and Uncle Kwesi for this opportunity. Today is also International Youth Day. And I want to use this opportunity to congratulate all the young people in this country who are contributing enormously to the growth of this country. We believe there's so much to do, but the young people of this country must rise up and take up the mantle of leadership and ensure that we move this country forward. Today, young people in this country are subjected to all sorts of discrimination, social discrimination, employment discrimination, and all manner of discriminations. Young people of this country suffered from illusions, lack of opportunities for young people in this country. As we celebrate the International Youth Day, we must celebrate the very few who have had the opportunity to play significant roles in our democracy. We must also use this opportunity to create more space and more opportunities for the young people of this country to rise up and identify their true potential and contribute meaningfully to the development of this country. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Thank you once again.
Well, comrades and friends and viewers, once again we've come to the end of a very exciting Wednesday Palaver. And we'd like to announce that today from 7 p.m. Professor Nana Jane Opoku Ajimai who is the running mate of the National Democratic Congress, will be participating in the celebration of World Youth Day. And Pan-African Television is among a number of television and radio stations which are covering it live. So please keep your dial on Pan-African Television at 7 to observe the celebration of World Youth Day, led by Professor Nana Jane Opoku Ajiman. Well, on behalf of the production team, Adam, director, Loretta and Roseanne as producers, and everybody in Pan-African Television, cameramen, makeup artists, everybody, I'd like to say bye-bye to you, and we'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.